Hello, Wansee. My name is Avi. The story I'm about to tell you happened in the winter of 2017. At the time, I was 12 years old and suffering from chickenpox. I'd been on strong medication, and it left me weak and constantly exhausted. One night, I was supposed to take my medicine at midnight, but by a little after 9 p.m., I was already struggling to stay awake. My mom laid me down in bed and told me she would wake me up when it was time to take my medicine. That night, we were staying at my grandmother's house. My siblings and I slept on makeshift beds on the floor, facing a window. The window was partially broken, and the missing section had been covered with a wooden board. It was an old house. The door was positioned just above my head. That night, all of my siblings were in another room watching a movie, so I was alone in the bedroom. I didn't have a phone back then, so I was just lying there, slowly scanning the room with my eyes. I had no idea what I was about to see. When my gaze stopped on the half-broken window, I noticed something sticking out. It was something I had never noticed before while lying in bed. At first, I thought it was just part of the wooden board. But when I looked closer, I realized it was a face, a young girl's face. Her skin was pale and her eyes were completely white. There were multiple wounds across her face, and she was moving frantically as if she was desperate to crawl into the room through the window. I was terrified. I shut my eyes and turned to reach for the door, but suddenly, the blanket covering me was yanked toward the window. Then I saw her smiling at me. I screamed. My family came running into the room. I clung to my mother and pointed at the window, but everyone told me there was nothing there. My dad and my brother even walked right up to the window to check. They said they didn't see anything. After I calmed down, I described exactly what I had seen. They told me I must have hallucinated because I was so sick. But even if the face I saw was a hallucination, what about the blanket? My entire family saw that the blanket had been pulled and was lying right next to the window. So I still wonder, if what I saw wasn't real, how did the blanket move on its own? About 9 years ago, I worked briefly in a remote rural area. That's when something happened to me, something I still can't fully explain. At the time, I rented a small house through Airbnb. It took a long drive to get there, but the house itself was beautiful. Wide, open plains stretched out around it in every direction. By the time I arrived, it was already dark, and I went to bed not long after. Sometime deep in the night, I suddenly woke up. I heard the sound of a car pulling up in front of the house. That didn't make any sense at all. The place was completely isolated. There were no other houses nearby, and there was absolutely no reason for anyone to be out here at that hour. I stepped into the living room. That's when I heard footsteps approaching the front door from outside. I looked through the window next to the door and saw someone setting a plate of barbecue down in front of the door. I remember thinking, what kind of situation is this? Who leaves a plate of barbecue on someone's doorstep at 3 a.m? Confused, I called out, "Who is it?" A man answered,
"I'm your neighbor. Come have some barbecue with me."
But there were no neighbors anywhere nearby, and that's when I noticed he was wearing a white ski mask. My heart started pounding. I said, "What, a neighbor?" But he ignored me and calmly walked back toward his truck parked behind him. I stood there, stunned, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. Then I saw him pull something out of the truck. It was long, very long. In his hands was a massive steel skewer, easily 6 to 7 feet long. That's when I realized something was very wrong. He started walking toward the window where I was standing. Without warning, he suddenly thrust the skewer straight at me. The glass shattered instantly, and the skewer shot deep into the house. I threw myself sideways on pure instinct. If I'd been even a second slower, it would have gone straight through my body. I ran to the bedroom, grabbed my phone, and called 911. While I was on the phone, everything outside went quiet. Slowly, I stepped back into the living room. The man was still there, standing outside, looking around. Because of the mask, all I could see in the darkness were his eyes. Those eyes burned into my memory. I still see them. They looked dull and cloudy, almost as if they were covered in fog. I shouted, "What do you want from me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he adjusted his grip and lifted the skewer again. It looked heavy. Trying to control my shaking breath, I yelled, "The police are on their way!" He replied calmly,
Oh yeah? Then I'll just finish you quickly.
I watched as he wiped the skewer with what looked like a cloth. All I could think was that I needed to buy time. I knew it would take a while for the police to reach such a remote place. The window was already broken. If he really wanted to, he could have come inside. But he didn't. He just stood there, staring at me. Then, in a low, cruel voice, he said,
I'm going to put a lot of holes in you.
Fear locked my legs in place, but somehow I forced myself into the kitchen and grabbed a knife. When I looked back at the window, he was gone. I ran into the bathroom and locked the door. Moments later, I heard the sound of boots stepping into the living room. I closed my eyes and cried out to God. The footsteps moved through the house, slowly, deliberately. I backed as far away from the bathroom door as I could. I was sure the massive skewer would come crashing through it at any second. I heard him stop right in front of the door. In that moment, I was certain it was over. But after standing there for about 5 minutes, he turned away. I heard him walk back toward the front door. Then I heard his car start, and finally, the sound of it driving off. Even then, my body wouldn't stop shaking. It wasn't until I heard police sirens outside that I finally unlocked the door. The plate of barbecue at the entrance was gone. I told the police everything that had happened. I never found out if the man was caught. Later, I told my friends about what I'd experienced, but they didn't believe me. And honestly, I don't blame them. It was something almost impossible to imagine.